Good morning. I want to tell you a story. Once upon a time, it was March 7th. Our sanctuary was full of people, celebrating our stewardship gala, listening to our talented musicians, sharing food together. That was 12 weeks ago. Or maybe it was another lifetime. Our lives have changed radically since then. Some of us haven't touched another person in 12 weeks. Some of us haven't been to a store. Some of us haven't seen our families, and some of us are caring for our children 24/7. Some of us have lost our jobs, and some of us are mourning the deaths of people we knew. Our hearts are heavy and our minds confused as we try to make sense of what is happening all across America these past 2 nights. And as of this week, more than 100,000 Americans have died of a disease that none of us had heard of in December. How many of you are ready for this pandemic to be over? Yeah, me too. But despite our phase 1 opening, we know it's not. While we have been inside, the number of cases continued to go up. The virus is still out there. There still aren't enough tests or contact tracing. An effective early treatment is still a ways off. And a vaccine is at best months and months away. It is easy to despair, my friends. And maybe, like me, you have had more than a few private moments of sobbing. Maybe your sobbing this weekend has had less to do with the pandemic and more about what is happening in our country. A few weeks ago, Beacon Press, our UU publisher, issued a new book by the mid-20th century Viennese psychologist Viktor Frankl. The book is called Say Yes to Life in Spite of Everything. Frankl, as you probably know, was a well-known Vietnamese Jewish psychologist condemned to a concentration camp in 1943. His parents, his brother, and his pregnant wife were all murdered when they got to the camp. When Frankl was there, he wrote parts of what would be his enduring masterpiece, Man's Search for Meaning, on tiny scraps of paper that he found. Frankl was influenced by Nietzsche's whoever has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Whoever has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Frankl reported that the prisoners who were able to find larger meaning and purpose in life, who could dream about their future, were more likely to survive the camps than those who gave up and despaired. Say Yes to Life compiles 4 previously unpublished lectures written by Frankl for post-World War II audiences who he described as spiritually bombed out. He writes in the book, if the people in Buchenwald camp could sing, "We still want to say yes to life," shouldn't we be able to do so in incomparably milder circumstances? To say yes to life is not only meaningful under all circumstance because life itself is meaningful, but it is also possible under all circumstances. People can still say yes to life in spite of everything. How can we keep from singing? So, my friends, can all of us say yes to life despite the COVID-19 pandemic? Despite the meanness that is America and the horrific responses of our national leader and all that's being taken from us? I've been thinking a lot about my childhood hero, Anne Frank, who I know you know spent 2 years with 7 other people in a tiny, cramped attic without ever being able to go outside. Yet she was still able to write, "I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart." She also wrote, "How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world." I've been thinking about my hero, Nelson Mandela, who spent 15 of his 27 in-prison years in a tiny, tiny cell on Robben Island. The 7 of us who were going on our church mission trip that was canceled read Mandela's autobiography. In it, he tells the reader that when he arrived at Robben Island, the warden told him, "This is the island. This is where you will die." And yet he didn't. By keeping a daily schedule, by practicing a daily boxing routine he had learned in his youth, and by staying connected to the anti-apartheid movement. Viktor Frankl, like the Buddhists, exhorts us to understand that we all experience suffering in life. But he goes farther in asking us to make meaning of our suffering. I want to share with you some words from one of these lectures that I read over a month ago that I have thought about every day since. He writes, "It is not we who are permitted to ask about the meaning of life. It is life that asks the questions, directs questions at us. We are the ones who must answer, must give answer to the constant, hourly questions of life. Not what can I expect from life, but what does life expect of me?" He goes on to say, as long as we have breath, as long as we are still conscious, we are responsible for answering the questions that life asks of us. So what does life expect of us now? How, my friends, are we answering her questions? I have to say those questions seem different this morning than when I wrote them for you just 2 days ago. I spent part of this week diving deep into the scientific literature about psychological resiliency in periods of isolation. You may or may not know that there are lots of studies of isolation, studies of research stations in Antarctica, of the astronauts in the space station, of people in iron lungs, of people quarantined, and so on. The lessons from these situations are not always pretty. From a research report about the Antarctica weather stations, quote, "Some people become depressed and change their behavior. One station cook began serving unpalatable meals to his crewmates after a love affair with a coworker went sour, until the group revolted and frightened him back into line. In an extreme case, at the Russia Vostok station in 1959, a scientist became unhinged after losing a game of chess and murdered his opponent with an axe. Chess was subsequently banned at Antarctica stations. But my friends, the research also demonstrates that people can thrive in these situations by developing a sense of meaning and purpose. I learned this week that Sir Isaac Newton discovered gravity and created calculus when he had to leave Cambridge University in during the 1700s plague. So that's a high bar, right, to aspire to. But how we live during these times will make a difference, my friends, in how we will come out of them. We can say yes to our lives right now. Keeping a schedule is important. Taking time for fun, even on the hard days. For example, I learned this week that in the space station, crewmates have movie nights, and the last station binge watch Game of Thrones. They also have hobbies. They keep journals. Taking time to be grateful, taking time to get outside and being in nature. Exercise matters. On the space station, the astronauts work out 2.5 hours a day. Surely we can each do our 30 minutes. Eating well, getting enough sleep, limiting our news consumption, all will make a difference. But more than anything, staying connected is what's going to help us say yes to our lives. Staying connected to each other through our online worship and the online Romeos and the online Juliets and the caring crafters and the book club and the weekly ministers online coffee. We have so many opportunities for you to be with each other. And helping each other makes a difference. Astronaut Dr. Scott Kelly spent a year in isolation on the space station. Reflecting on the pandemic, he wrote, "The spread of the virus is showing us that what we share is more powerful than what keeps us apart, for better or for worse. All people are inescapably interconnected, and the more we come together to solve our problems, the better off we will be. As helpless as we may now feel, there are always things we can do." That applies to our response to systemic racism and police brutality as well. There are things you can do. And please, if you are finding all this too hard, if you are finding yourself crying on a regular basis or becoming depressed, please reach out to me or to a therapist or to an online support group or a dear friend. We need each other to get through this, all of this. I'm reminded of a Talmudic tale. A rabbi was asked how he could explain a natural disaster as a tragic act of God. The rabbi answered, "The disaster is an act of nature. The act of God occurs when people step up to help each other." I'm going to end with a brief Buddhist Sutra. You may have heard it. It speaks to me in these times, and I have a slide to show you. A monk traveling across a field encounters a tiger. The tiger takes after the monk and pushes him off the edge of a cliff. The monk catches himself by the root of a wild vine, and he swings himself down over the edge. The tiger is sniffing him from above, and the monk looks down to where far below another tiger is waiting for him. Only the vine is sustaining him, and then he looks closer at the vine, and you can see this in the picture. There are two tiny little mice who are gnawing away at his vine. And then the man sees a luscious strawberry near him. Grasping the vine with one hand as the mice continue to gnaw, he plucked that strawberry and put it in his mouth. How sweet the strawberry tasted. Even in those last minutes, he said yes to life. My friends, in this hard time, reach for the strawberry. Say yes to life despite everything. Say yes to life despite everything. In the words of the well-known 1927 poem Desiderata, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. My friends, may you say yes to life. The closing hymn this morning is hymn number 6. As long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. They echo these words from Frankl's last lecture. As long as we have breath, as long as we are still conscious, we are each responsible for answering life's questions. So, my friends, as you sing the words in the chat box, take them into your heart and your soul.